All right, we're live. Oh, have we lost that? We've lost the graphic. Okay, great. That means we're properly live. Hello, everyone. So, welcome to. It's not an AMA. It's not an ecosystem session. Anyway, welcome to an update. Sorry, Mary, you're on mute. Strategic update. Sorry. Welcome to a strategic update. It's actually a very exciting time right now. I'll give a little bit of an overview and then hand over to Eric. Um, it's a little bit weird because we're thinking about Holo, Holochain Foundation, and Unyt, the group that was set up late last year to focus on the peer-to-peer currency and accounting. Um, and so I think we've communicated from these different organizations really over the last year, but it's nice to all come together for this update. Firstly, if we just step back, the overall purpose, so the overarching purpose of this ecosystem is to support peer-to-peer infrastructure, agency, and data ownership. And that's regardless of the structure. All of the organizations are committed to that overarching purpose. In the changes over the last year, we have the Holochain Foundation, which goal is to deliver Holochain in service of that mission and then oversee the organizations that are delivering either tooling to support that mission or applications in service of that mission. And that is Holo and Unyt. And we, just as a reminder, we made that split late last year because we found that in one kind of homogenous organization, we weren't able to get the appropriate level of focus, clarity, delivery, and drive in each of these areas than we felt we could if they were separated out. And there'll be some updates over the course of today, which I think that has proven to be a very like prudent and successful change, actually. So today in the strategic update, it makes sense to update on where the different organizations are, but do that from this holistic perspective. So we look at it through the lens of how are we going towards our overarching goal and how are all these components tying together. I'm a little bit biased here because I've been focused more on the peer-to-peer currency and accounting side of things. And for those of you who are watching and also connected to Telegram and Twitter and whatever other places, I'm resisting the urge right now to go and check Telegram while I'm talking and chat away. But we're making some really exciting progress in the peer-to-peer accounting, currencies, payments, and mutual credit space at Unyt. And you'll hear more from Art and I on this later on the call and talk through some of the implications for the things we're doing, where they could go, and what it might mean for Unyt, Holofuel, and the Holochain Foundation. But I'll resist that temptation to go more into that and hand over to Eric to talk a little bit more about the strategic direction of the Holochain Foundation as the container for all of these projects and some of the changes coming up for Holo.
Cool. Thanks, David. I appreciate that. As you said, and I want to just emphasize this is what is the Holochains Foundation mission? It's always been and will continue to be supporting deep peer-to-peer infrastructure. And today, the whole point is to share on the strategy on how to deliver on that mission, how that strategy is evolving. So if you think about strategic work, strategic work is always about paying attention to the match between the efforts that you are undertaking and where the world is ready to receive those efforts. Since the beginning, since our inception, there's been a small group of true fans who've understood the potential and the need for the kind of deep peer-to-peer infrastructure that we've been building. That kind of infrastructure that allows for unintermediated direct interactions and transactions of all types. But at this moment in time, we're seeing a new kind of convergence. Holochain has been maturing significantly, and so has the world. The mainstream world is maturing to understand the need for P2P networks and processes. As Madeline, my colleague, says, We're meeting the moment, and the moment is meeting us. And there's a key domain in which that's happening, and this is why we led with David, which is the domain of value transfer. So as you know, the foundation created Unyt as a subsidiary to focus on building Holofuel, the accounting system for Holo, to use in its hosting platform. But it turns out that the tooling that Unyt has built has far broader implications and application than we originally realized. And this is part of the convergence. And it's also a huge opportunity. Unit's tooling turns out to be what people in the broad world are very excited about and what they're calling payment rails, generalized tooling for value tracking. And because it's built on Holochain, it's already fully peer-to-peer. That's part of the convergence. Again, so there's this huge opportunity for this technology to bring the deep qualitative value that peer-to-peer provides, increased transparency, increased agency, reduced cost, privacy, and also huge volume. When we're talking about digital payments and transactions, you count in the trillions. So this is a place where we have a real opportunity. The implications are huge. And so they need and deserve the focus of the foundation and our resources so we can develop that opportunity that we have because of this convergence. So David and Art are going to talk about what we're seeing and how that can work in the future, going down this strategic path. But before they do, there's also other shifting happening in our other subsidiary, Holo, in particular in its leadership and technology. And Mary, I'd like you to tell us more about that.
All right. Thanks, Eric and David. So hi, everybody. So a little bit, a small part of some big news today. I'll just start with some transition conversations. So I've had the privilege of being the executive director here at Holo, gosh, since 2018. And today I'm announcing that I've officially stepped down from that role. So this for me is both a personal and a very strategic transition. So personally, it's going to make rooms for me to step into a few things that I've been doing that some of you may have heard, like with Certia, which is a public benefit corporation that is launching also things in this domain, privacy first, wellness. And it's again committed to the same foundations that Holo has been all along with sovereign data, and apps that can support how we share that sovereign data. So that's happening. But strategically, also, this is something that is going to open the way for Eric Harris Brown to step into the executive director role at Holo. And Eric is doing this because he not only brings the deep Holochain expertise, because Eric's been part of Holo at different times in the last 8 years, just not more in the last 3 or 4 years or so. So he brings not just this holochain expertise, and it's important since it's at a new level of stability, but also the history of leadership in the ecosystem. And I can't really imagine anyone better right now to carry the work forward with Holo. So just a note, I'm going to be staying connected with the project and during the transition and beyond. For me, this has never just been about the technology, it's been about the community, it's been about the people here, and all of the people who are building and experimenting with this kind of technology together in the ecosystem. So it's been an honor serving in this role. I'm excited to see where we go next. Thanks, Eric.
Thank you, Mary.
Everybody.
Oh, thank you in so many ways. In one particular way that's important to highlight right now is my appreciation for you and how we've been working together in this transition. You've been holding so much over all of these years at all levels, but especially in the business and organizational level and how that interacts when you're trying to bring as complex a technical project as Holo and Holochain into the world. So I'm really grateful how you've been helping me take over that aspect of the work, because I have been focusing so much more on the technological side.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. As part of that, I'm just a piece here. We've been working together with the team, doing a full evaluation of the centralized parts of Holo's orchestration and of technology and of the holoports and the challenging migration pains that have come along with that. And what we've discovered in the process is an opportunity to deliver a lot more value right now, really quickly. And I'm going to talk about that in a little bit. But before we shift gears into that, I just want to sit a moment in the gratitude that we have for what you've done for us, Mary. The heart, the soul you've poured into this project over the years. Thank you for your leadership, your wisdom, your friendship, and all that you've done for us and the community. The number of startups that fail is very high. The number of startups that fail that are attached to the crypto world is even higher. It's a testament to your leadership that we're here right now, and we're able to move forward with the strength and confidence that we can. So thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks. And yeah, Mary, I mean, I remember first meeting you. I don't know, you have not the same time as these guys, but close to at least 8 years ago or something now, and worked and collaborated remotely and met up in all sorts of places around the world. And I think what I most appreciated, and these are the kind of like behind the scenes things that people may not realize, but every time we needed to make a big decision or we really needed to focus and align, then you were there to have that tough conversation, whether you were on initiating or receiving, and you would just work through it until we got to the place that we needed to get to be able to progress. So I agree with Eric. Without that capability, we would have got stuck many times. And of course, you'd had to do that hundreds of times without me in all sorts of areas, and the responsibilities and accountabilities you took care of. I mean, you also moved halfway around the world to make all of this happen and stayed committed to that life for a long time. And again, I don't know that people quite realize some of the sacrifices that were made in order to make this successful and set us up in the best possible way. So yeah, I'd say a huge thank you for that. And for me, that partnership where we're willing to work through, and yeah, the more challenging things to get to a better outcome is something that I've really treasured, very much appreciate, and it's a unique gift. So thank you very much.
Thanks, David. Appreciate it.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy to think, that we go back over 30 years, like I think we met in 1993 in the salon community in Detroit, and, beautiful community because you were playing music with a college friend of mine. And, like the the number of communities and experiences that we've shared together over the decades, and then we both moved to Colorado, created businesses there, even lived together there a couple times in different settings. And yeah, it's kind of crazy, the kind of depth of background and relatedness. And I really appreciate sort of what, Eric was saying a little bit of it, but you're stepping into the management of so many of the details and operations and finance and all that kind of stuff. Let us keep a focus on technology in ways that, it's where we like to focus more. And so it really gave us a lot of opportunity and freedom in you doing that. And your willingness to be our representative on the ground in Gibraltar and move there, another big transition like David mentioned. And yeah, just for the leadership, the structure, the everything that you've provided, it's been super powerful. And so it is, I guess we all have transitions at different times, and sort of relationships and roles play out their purpose or their script, and there's always times for transitions. It doesn't always make the transitions easy, or that you're always ready for them or whatever. So in ways I'm sad to see you go. In other ways I'm excited for what's next, like how that's always the case. So, and also really appreciate you having kind of initiated some of the transitions that let me step outside the org to focus on building the accounting and currency stuff over the past almost year, because that has been super powerful for me, and I think will be super powerful for the community and orgs. Thank you.
Yeah, it's been great. So, I mean, and just to note, I mean, I am stepping down, and I will still be supporting a lot of others' transitionary work over the coming months, because I know that this is not something, what I've been holding has been significant, especially in a startup. It's different sometimes in vast, large organizations where you have hundreds and thousands of people to kind of hold all the reins and everywhere. So just as a note, I'm very cognizant that this is still in process, even though it's official. I'm happy to be part of this ecosystem and part of the project, and make sure that this all goes in a very, in a way that really works for everyone. So it's been great to be here. I just appreciate you all, and I'm really looking forward to the next chapter for everybody. And all the different organizations and the value we're bringing into the world. So. I guess that's it. I'm going to let you guys go. I think you guys have a lot of really cool things to talk about today, so I think you should get on to it. How's that?
Good. Thanks again, Mary.
Everybody.
All right. See
Ciao.
you. Ciao. Okay, so now I get to start talking again, but this time fully in my role as Holo Executive Director, not in the role that I came on at the beginning of this call as a leadership and Executive Director of the Foundation. So, as I was saying, part of what happened during this transition was looking at the tech, looking at where things are right now, and we decided to do an experiment. We did an exploration. We found a possibility about a different way, both technically and structurally, of deploying Holochain always-on nodes. So what we've done is, over the last month, we built an Open Container Initiative compliant, that's an OCI compliant container image that can run on any device, physical or virtual, to serve as always-on nodes for a Holochain app. And it makes it really easy for these nodes to be spun up and run. We're calling this container Edge Node, and it's being released now. I think people who might be savvy have seen it. I'm going to share my screen so you can actually see where it's at. There we go. Share. It's at Holo Host, and it is Holo Host Edge Node. So if you are tech savvy, you can go there and you can install it. So not only is there an OCI compliant container, which is basically a Docker container for those of you who are tech savvy, but there's also a minimal special purpose Linux OS that's built on top of it. So you can install it on your Holoport, on other hardware. And you can find it here and start playing with it now. So technically, what's different about this is that the deployment environment isn't Nix, which is what we've been using over the past years. The experiment is to see what happens if we just use a standard OCI container and Docker. And what that does structurally is it gives us access to a much wider audience of tech-savvy folks. A lot of people know how to install and run Docker containers, as opposed to the relatively smaller audience of the folks who know Nix. So we're releasing this open source, expecting feedback on how this might evolve, how it might work, and making it possible for people to run and deploy their own edge nodes.
All right.
So, yeah.
Sorry for jumping in. Is this something, because I know last week we had 50 or so people running the Circulo 1 test. Is this something that people who are testing Unyt applications could run with always-on nodes for Unyt applications?
Very easily. What there is, as you can see in there, there's a format for a configuration file, which just points to where the app is defined, and a couple commands that installs the app and runs it, and it's up and running on your device. So
Okay.
there's a lot of fun play that we can do with this.
Amazing.
Yes.
I'll pull you in a sec. I'll just, so as a call to action, if anyone's running in any of these test groups and wants to run an always on node, then just ping Jared in the Telegram group. And if you need any help, we'll support you to get everything up and running. But definitely like 4 or 5 people at least in the next major test running always on nodes. That'll be fantastic. This is a huge, this is actually huge. It's like the #1 issue that we've been having is that there's, that actually having more always on nodes is going to make a big difference. Okay, Art, sorry.
Well, good. I just wanted to inject predicting some questions because I didn't catch it. Maybe I missed it when Eric was saying this, but basically this involves having to create a USB that you can install, like boot up a system. If you're gonna set it up on a system, you can on a hardware device. So it allows you to do DIY, bring your own hardware device stuff. It will also allow you to run it on Holo ports. You could also set this up, use it as an image for a cloud thing. He talked about an ISO image, but many people may not realize that that's basically a bootable disk image that if you want to put that on a piece of hardware, you got to put that on a USB drive, boot that up, and
Yeah.
install it.
The installation instructions are all there. For tech-savvy people, you don't even need that because you can just use the ISO container, the Docker container, and do a Docker pull. So tech folks can do this without even that stage. So I didn't want to say too much about it. I wanted to point people to the repo where you can start reading and giving feedback there. So that's the news on the Holo side, what we've been doing as we're evaluating how to move forward and live into our promises on that side. Now I get to switch hats. I should have a hat here back into the foundation role because I want to speak also about the progress that's been happening on Holochain, specifically about the progress in Holochain 0.5 and Holochain 0.6 and speed improvements. I think when we jumped from 0.4 to 0.5, there was a 30-fold increase in DHT sync speed. That's really significant. And we're also seeing in the tests that have been happening with Circulo, increase between 0.5 and the developer releases on 0.6. Folks who are interested can jump and look at the roadmap. I'm actually quite proud of the roadmap that we now have on the Holochain side as part of the way of connecting progress directly to how the developers are operating. If you haven't seen our roadmap, I'm just going to share that on screen because it's super cool. Let's see if you can see that here. Am I in the right place? Yes. So no, I have to switch over. That's the wrong one. Stop share. I'll bring that up in just a second. Where did my roadmap go? This is what happens when you haven't been doing too many of these live streams. I'll come back to that in a second. But the other thing that I want to talk about in the progress that we've been having on the Holochain side is Wind Tunnel. Wind Tunnel, as many of you know, and as we've talked about before, is our performance evaluation tool for Holochain. And this tool is critical and is coming into its own. It's really working now. And I want to show you, I think this is, I think I can get my screen share back on now because I found all my windows here. Where am I? Here we go. All right, here's the roadmap, right? So you can see what's up. You can see the progress that we have, where we are in the different epochs that we're part of, how much time we think it's going to be because we're doing burn down calculations and so on. And you can click through directly. Like if you're interested in, okay, what did they do with Kitsune maintenance? You can click on it and it goes to our project management. It actually shows you what's done, who was working on it. This is the tool that we live in and work on when we're working on things. So we're playing here in the open and we're playing live. Now, Wind Tunnel. Here you're seeing some of the metric outputs of running a scenario in which we flood the network with lots of commits, and we measure how long it takes nodes to receive and integrate all those commits. What you're seeing here is exactly what Wind Tunnel is supposed to reveal. How hard can you drive Holochain before its performance starts to drop below values that might or might not be acceptable in your use case? So you can see here sync lag, how long it takes for a thing to sync over time as it's moving along. And you can see as I put my mouse on this, we can see the actual metric that's being measured. On this time, oh, that's the max, the mean, and this is the max. Over here, we're seeing the send count of messages that were sent as it rises. And it kind of makes sense. As you're flooding the network and more messages are out there, it's going to take longer for things to synchronize. You can see that as the number rises, the and the number received rises, the lag time also rises. Makes total sense. But you can also see things like how long did it take to do a create entry and with this variable, and you can see other metrics that are showing up. You can see network bytes sent, you can see memory used, you can see a CPU usage, how that's happening at the same time. This kind of stuff is critical for being able to deliver on the what I would call production-ready kind of tooling that that Holochain is evolving into. And I'm really psyched about that. I mean, what that shows you right there is kind of like you put the airplane into the tunnel and you pull back on the stick and you see how far it goes up before it starts to stall. That's what wind tunnel is for. A piece about this is that it allows our own developers to figure out what we can expect and where to optimize, but other teams can use it as well. And the Unyt team has been using this on Unit's software to actually figure out how well things are working and find things and communicate back to the Holochain development team about where to fix things as well. So I'm really psyched about the progress that we have on that. Okay. So the next piece, speaking again from the foundation side, I think you've heard this before. I'm just going to say it one more time because it's so important for strategically. As David teased at the top of the call, we've made real progress that can be seen in Unyt. And with what we've seen, we've gotten way more than what we bargained for in the best possible way. So the specific remit from that we asked of Unyt was to build the infrastructure for HoloFuel. And like I said, what we've got now is software that actually allows the creation of payment rails for any mutual credit type currency and accounting system. And there's this example that's already out there. There's Circulo that's running. This connects us back to our original purpose, the enabling of productive capacity-backed mutual credit currencies and a lot more of them. As you've seen, Unyt is already up and running with a product to show for it, Circulo. And I think maybe now it's time for you, Arthur and David, to take the mic back and tell us more about what's been happening over there.
Yeah, sure. Okay, I'll give you a bit of an update and then pass on to Art, and we can do any back and forth as needed. So, yeah, so again, for all of those of you who spend time in Telegram, you'll probably be seeing various messages or Twitter of whether it's me in Telegram, Jared, other members of the team, or it's people in the community, some who haven't been around for a while that are all coming back and posting on Twitter, playing with Circulo, and you think, what's this Circulo thing and what's going on? And it's really working. Screenshots of people and videos of people sending different named units to each other. What's been incredibly exciting is that while we looked at what was getting built with Unyt in readiness for HoloFuel, we started to realize that some of the innovations that we'd created to get to this like very advanced currency were absolutely like game changing for things that we would have considered simple, but aren't simple for other people. So the ability to just like connect into a system and spin up a small payment network, and then onboard and then offboard, these kind of things that we're able to do that you actually can't get easily anywhere else. So and there are some things then that we've been talking about for many years, that like things like trade finance or supply chain finance, where there's complex legal, financial, and accounting and monetary agreements between parties that may or may not know each other, of which a blockchain is good for some of those things, but the rigidness and the lack of flexibility, organic nature, really make it difficult to deploy solutions in the more organic or complex environments, kind of like local trade networks or integrated supply chain. So we're really, really excited on where things could go. And most of all, we released Circular 1 last week. We had 50 people or so testing thing. We got a ton of good feedback. We'll be having another release early next week. And what we're seeing for the 60 or so people in the Circular chat is where it's almost like it's 2018 again, where like there are people coming back with a ton of different ideas for, I would like to implement this kind of thing. I'm building a game. How could this connect? I'm really worried about the way the world's working, and I don't want central bank digital currencies and digital IDs. I want to be able to offer alternatives to my community. And I think like went away. One of the most exciting things is that we've with Unyt, we've flipped from just the focus on Holochain could do anything for anyone if you believe in the overarching principles, right into here's a specific tool that you can configure in your ways to achieve something very important for you. And it's allowing people to create all these ideas, dream visions. And this is what I've been, excited about and one of the things that massively has motivated me over the last decade is to be in the position where we've got people coming with their own ideas for currencies, for payment systems, for accounting systems, for mutual credit. They're able to implement them, deploy, and some will know about, some will never even hear about. So yeah, very, very excited. We can see how big the payment space is right now. Lots of organizations I've been talking to over the last couple of years are been making big plays in payments. We can see some of the benefits of stable coins and blockchain-based payment systems, and we think this just takes things to a completely new level. And we're very, very excited about the possibilities. Let me check my notes here. Yeah, so to summarize a Unyt, technology that permits individuals and communities to build their own currencies, interact, transact with each other, and account for value. The opportunity is way broader than providing hosting a currency for like peer-to-peer cloud. So for example, just providing Holo fuel infrastructure, which we're absolutely doing. But we're definitely going to scale beyond that opportunity rapidly. The software is making tools to track payments and build currencies that are super, super, super simple. And we're already seeing that with Circular, something really simple, but they've so simple anyone will be able to spin up their own payment system. But there's complexity in there, even in the simplicity, that can make these kind of systems really stick and work with people, work with communities at all sorts of scales. And so far, I think what even today, the Unyt currencies that we're working with are great for the people who've been part of the Holochain and especially the hot community. But we're already tapping into people who aren't so much into crypto, but very happy to download an application and get started. And hopefully soon enough, we'll be also able to get started on an Android. Art, maybe I can hand over to you to talk a little bit more about what the possibilities you see, but also sort of the technology behind it.
Cool. Thanks, David. Maybe saying goodbye to Mary made me a little bit nostalgic, thinking back of how long I've known her and worked together, but I kind of feel like there's a moment here that I actually want to bring some of that to this conversation because as Eric said, some of our purpose in creating Holochain was really rooted in this. He and I were working on something before this called the Metacurrency Project. For those who don't know, you can find some stuff at metacurrency.org, although we have been neglecting that site forever. But yeah, I met Eric back in 2004, so a little over 20 years ago at a local currencies conference, and we'd both been working in that kind of space. And so releasing something like Circulo as a local currency engine that could be configured to different communities' needs is in many ways kind of going right back to where we originally connected. And So it's kind of fun to bring things full circle in that regard. Um, but what we have now with, first of all, the things I started building community currency tools back in 2001. We didn't have decentralized ledger tech. We didn't have cryptographic assurances really at that time. We didn't have immutable histories and ledgers and that kind of stuff for doing this kind of thing. Generally, it was centralized client server kind of tools in use. And so it's fun to have this become something that can truly move to the edge, move to people's hands. And as you mentioned, David, can be as easy to deploy as essentially people install it and now they are peers. Like that's what deployment on Holochain generally looks like. And so it can lower the barrier for lots of communities. And then you alluded to something that I think is worth spelling out, which is there's also a lot of ways that regulations and compliance can be navigated here, because fundamentally this is an accounting tool, and accounting is legal everywhere, right? And there are things that you can do where you might set this up for a community and it would really be like a private internal currency. It would not be a security. It would not be a publicly traded thing. It would not be, it's not being traded out on exchanges and markets. And that's a very different kind of thing than building a cryptocurrency that goes out to exchanges and markets. There's also ways you could go to exchanges and markets and have it be so decentralized that there isn't an entity to regulate. I mean, there's just so many options in how you could approach this. We're not trying to give legal advice here. We are getting legal advice around this kind of stuff, and we'll be launching some things in multiples of these different patterns. But I actually hope that serves as some good examples for people to be able to see some of the options for how you can navigate this stuff and not have kind of your freedom to interact and transact kind of be too constrained by regulatory constraints, because there's so many ways you can approach it, angles you can approach it from with these tools. Didn't really mean to talk about that one, but you sort of triggered that in me when you were talking, David, so I just wanted to say more about it. What I want to actually talk about is some of the possibilities in it, like what this has opened up, because obviously it was made to build something like Holofuel, but also to have that Holofuel operate in an alliance of projects. So it is a multi-currency accounting system natively, in so far as not only can you define different units and currencies, but you can, in any single transaction, have as many of those moving in any direction, as you want. And that's typically not the way accounting tools, and certainly not the way cryptocurrency, and certainly not the way cryptocurrency trading and things like DEXs and stuff is set up. So it starts to enable new kinds of patterns that break up a bunch of our assumptions. Like, what if you're not constrained to liquidity pools, because you can be having an anything for anything trade happening where, in fact, you could be getting paid in 3 different currencies, not just one. And so anyway, there's these tools I think are going to allow us to build a bunch of things that kind of step outside of a lot of current assumptions in the industry. And that has advantages and disadvantages. We don't want to be too different, but we also want to take advantage of some of the things that we can do, like offline and async transactions. There are places where people really need that kind of infrastructure, and blockchain and other things like that don't really, and obviously centralized apps don't really make that opportunity. So you're going to be seeing us. We've already started the process of doing new product releases every 2 weeks over in Unyt. We're going to do that through the end of the year and maybe beyond. So you're going to be seeing a whole bunch of these things coming out and able to play with them and get them in your own hands. Yeah, I
Thank
guess
you.
that's it for the moment.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
just
All right.
building on one thing. Oh, Eric, can I just build on one thing that Art said for a
Yeah.
minute? Because I think like we've been talking for, and I
You're
think
break.
as oh,
Say it again. You
Your
were breaking
audio,
up for a second.
I think my connection is just unstable. Is that a little bit better? Yeah, just cut out for a second. I think, as I said, we've talking about a decade for beyond blockchain, but I'd say that just building on what Art mentioned, there is because of the rise in the understanding of the power of decentralization, which is entering mainstream finance, traditional finance, then we are starting to get all these groups that we're kind of waiting for a little bit over this last decade coming towards the edge of the understanding of where we were 10 years ago. You know? And I think that is the most exciting thing. Just really want to reiterate that so that the opportunity, let's say 1%, I think, of transactions or value a month is in stable coins, something like that, 1.5 trillion. And Holochain can not only take the huge wave of the more complex kind of interactions that really couldn't be run on a blockchain, the type of interactions that can't even be considered on a blockchain, let alone all of the non-financial transactions, interactions, etc., that are so important to all of our daily life that aren't even really in the consideration set right now. So I think it's a very exciting time. I will stop there, and Eric, and back to you.
Yeah. I really appreciate this nostalgia piece, right? Arthur, I'm just while we were talking here, I went back and I looked, I Googled Beyond Blockchain, Simple Scalable Cryptocurrencies. This was the article you put out in 2016, even before Holochain, like we were just beginning to think about building Holochain. But the idea was there about what is possible. And this is, it's amazing. Like, I think one thing I've been sharing Moss, which is the application framework, the runtime framework for Holochain apps, and building on that. And the thing that happens that people don't get, like they say, well, where is this being hosted when they spin up Moss and they start installing the tools? It's not being hosted anywhere. It's being held by the people who are running the tooling itself. And that's really different. That's like the true depth of P2P, not just decentralization, where you end up relying on your miners and stakers to hold the value. In Holochain, it's different, and that has such a powerful experience. And when you bring that into the place where we are tracking value together, we're making decisions about that, we're doing governance decisions, it's a different world that shows up. And so just I want to hold that, and so like I already know what that's like as people are using Moss for regular type tooling that looks like, Slack and whatever. But when you have that for communities, for businesses alliances, for friend groups splitting bills, for organizations with complex internal accounting, a different reality becomes possible. And like you're saying, it really is the case that the world is catching up to that place, and we are ready for it. It's not that there aren't glitches, that we still don't have things to do in Holochain. We have things to build out, and we have tooling to build, and stabilization to achieve. But the edges are meeting in the right place right now. I think probably it's time for us to wind up the call. But I'm wondering, David, if you can actually give an example of what you mean by non-financial transactions. This is a
Yeah, so
critical and really important piece.
yeah, well, why don't I give an example of a group that we're in discussions with at Unyt that on some support, and then if you guys want to jump in and because I know again that these kind of things are one of the major reasons that you're both been dedicating a large part of your life to these efforts. But the one group I've been talking to a lot is looking to build out a transformation. Probably will end up costing north of $100 million in a community in South America, right? And that is to upgrade all of the infrastructure, and the major part is community involvement. Now, community involvement and looking at contribution in all its different forms is something that's traditionally really tricky to understand. So when I'm talking about things like non-financial transactions, in that particular community, it's looking at building a much deeper understanding of different contributions and interactions between people. Yeah. So one of the ways in this particular group is that they're looking through is through the lens of the meta capital framework. And so what they'll be looking for are different currencies that that track different forms of contribution. So meta capital framework can include things like natural capitals, or the contribution to ecology and contribution to the land. It might include forms of wellness, and in which case it would be doing things, maybe, something like Sertia with Mary, and capturing the kinds of like things we might do in terms of exercise, walking, etc. But almost also we could be looking at the kind of interactions of like when we've supported each other. And so all of these things are different interactions or transactions, but you can see in the Unyt app, they're actually called interactions that might be really helpful for creating a stronger whole. But in the way that we have right now of capturing data are subservient to financial data. And one way, or one simple reason for this, is if we're trying to track and capture and share everything, then it can be really expensive. But when we've got tooling like Unyt, which is powered by the people that believe in the currency or the system that we're using. So, for example, Circulo only exists for the users that are running Circulo, or now that we have the Holo Edge announcement, for also the users that want to provide the early always on nodes. So given that infrastructure, it's much more lightweight. And so in that lightweight world, we're able to start to account for a much broader set of interactions. I don't know if you'll have much a better definition than me.
Yeah, I just wanted to say, although in our definition of currencies from the Metacurrency project, it can be very broad and can get into like ratings and all that kind of stuff. Unyt is more of an accounting context, not trying to do all sorts of dimensions of reputation and ratings, although it has a little bit of those capacities. But one of the things is also things like what we've called service units. Like if you're talking about Holo Fuel for Holo hosting, measuring bandwidth, measuring, storage, measuring compute power used, and that you then are in some ways almost like trading the service units you provided for a payment unit that you receive. And then you get to see in the accounting framework actually how much bandwidth and storage and everything was being performed, as well as how much you've provided and all that kind of stuff. And those are cases of non-monetary units. They're still in the realm of measurable units. Like mostly the Unyt accounting framework is sticking with the measurable realm. For those of us that have been for those of you that have been tracking metacurrency long enough, we go deeper than just tradable and measurable, but we're focused on these tools with really just tradable and measurable. Although it's worth mentioning that native to Unyt is fungible units, non-fungible units, or we would call them unique units, and what we're calling permanent units, which basically means unique and not transferable. So they're like somewhat in the realm of reputational, but only in a measure. Like you've received a particular badge for having completed KYC or something like that, but you can't transfer that badge to anyone, and it's a unique kind of recognition. So it's sort of a way to sneak badges or something like that in the measurable stuff. And then the smart agreements in Unyt can have logic that composes on those things. Like if you have this badge and some of these units, then you can qualify for, something like that. So anyway, all of those things are some of the things in the non-financial realm. And I'm seeing that there's a question about bridging blockchain currencies. And I just want to say that that will be one of the releases that we're doing in the Holo Fuel track, is to demonstrate kind of the hot to Holo Fuel swapping, bridging kind of thing. And yes, we are using something very similar to like the Rain protocol's semi-fungible tokens, which I don't always love the name for, because it's not just that it's partially fungible. There's actually a fungible part and a non-fungible part. But anyway, the we're going to be doing bridging very similar to how we've already demonstrated bridging in the past, and how Rain protocol does bridging, where something gets locked on the blockchain and mirrored in this other space, and then potentially people can go and unlock that asset on the blockchain as an off ramp.
Okay,
Yeah, we'll
I'm
be
gonna jump.
experimenting. Oh, damn.
I'm gonna
It's
jump in here.
Bye.
Well, what's going on here? What's going on here is very clearly how excited we are about this, and what you're hearing is actually the possibilities, the depth of possibility that can come out of this, and not just the depth of possibility, but the actuality that is showing up right now. Did you want to say one last thing, David, before I close us out for the call?
Yes, I think like for those of you who are testing, pay attention to the upcoming circular release if you'd like to be a more thorough tester. So we'll be having a release of like a circular or a similar product every couple of weeks, maybe a little bit more, depending on whether we're also releasing Unyt features. There is also a dedicated Unyt testing group if you'd like to be testing 3-4 times a week. So if you want to do that, message in the chat, ping message in this chat, or the live stream links on YouTube, message on Telegram, and tag us, and someone will add you in. And yes, this is one of the things that we'll be experimenting with this year. So that someone would ask, does this mean you'll be able to do DeFi on Holochain? And I think if you're putting 2 and 2 together from what Art's been saying, I've been saying on the call, it means like you could run like full monetary policy kind of scenarios on Unyt, in the future. So it kind of means that you'll be able to open up from one world, whether that's an altcoin or a stable coin or whatever it is, and then expand into, move into an expansive and ever evolving, Holochain powered Unyt backed world, and then bridge back again. So yeah, this is something that we'll be testing this year.
And I just want to acknowledge, we did that. We opened up the circular test. We'd gotten about 100 people signed up. At around 50 people testing, we began running into some problems. And in part, that's because we were using a different networking protocol than the one like Eric showed you all those wind tunnel tests, right? And that's all been happening on one networking protocol. We released this under another that we haven't tested as thoroughly, and don't even, I think, know how to configure and control as effectively. We're still in our own learning curve on that one. And we started getting rate limited in that networking protocol, and things really started slowing down. And so we're going to be having more releases. We're probably going to be testing both protocols still. And so it's not that there are no glitches to work out, especially when we're doing new releases, also like mobile releases. We have some testing we're going to need to be doing there. And so while the underlying functionality is strong, there's still details that are being sorted. So your participation and support in that is also very helpful.
Thanks, guys. So now I get to close out this call with both of my hats on at the same time, from the foundation and from Holo, because part of what I'm doing is helping to hold the whole and hold that. So as we move forward, this leadership team is evaluating all of the technical governance, legal choices that affect the ecosystem's future. It's not simple, as Mary said. What it takes to answer those questions is a lot of complexity. And I know that in this live stream, there have been questions that we haven't answered. But to answer them and to hold all of that complexity involves a lot of careful work across jurisdictions, across accounting standards, all of this stuff that's been happening in the background to support us. It takes time to answer that well, way more time than I thought and that you might think as well. But getting the kind of work, that the answers for that kind of questions and doing that kind of work, which is what will create clarity and confidence for the community, it's necessary. By taking the time to get that right, we want to ensure that value that we build is durable and it's shared by all of the stakeholders in our community. And I want to say something about the community and stakeholders. This isn't an abstract thing for me and for us. What I'm talking about is you, the people watching and being part of this on the live stream. You are the staff, contributors to Holo, Holochain, and Unyt from the past, from the beginning to right now. You are the Holoport owners. You are hot holders, holders of Holofuel certificates. You are HAP developers, hackathon participants, our project partners, early adopters that have been with us all the time and haven't gotten as much as recognition as they should. You are the advocates and enthusiasts who show up on Telegram, on Twitter, Reddit, everywhere else on the internet. You're our community admins and stewards on Telegram and elsewhere. You're organizers and businesses and the people who will be working within the future. You're all of the people who've shown up over the years, understanding the potential of our vision, the work we've been doing, and who've been speaking out loud along with us, committed to that underlying vision of a world in which we actually really do have that deep P2P infrastructure, and that it actually works. So that's who I see when I think of our stakeholders. I am doing my best, and we here are doing our best to hold all of you. And sometimes what you want pulls in opposite directions, I will admit, but we're still seeing all of you as stakeholders and care about the value that we build, that it builds value for you. So to all of you, I say thank you. Thank you for being part of this journey. Please continue to show up for the conversation. I'm really looking forward to hearing how Circular works for you and how the new things that Unyt is pushing out will work for you. I'm looking forward to getting your feedback on edge nodes. I'm looking forward to seeing you in the dev.hc Discord to help you build your Holochain apps. I'm there in the office hours. So please continue to show up for the conversation. And again, thank you. And that's it for today. Signing off. Thank you.